Good morning, everyone. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. It's been a little while. I've been spending an awful lot of time on Quora.com, Quora.com, Quora.com. It's a forum for all sorts of different areas of expertise, for people to ask questions, and for scholarship at all levels and from many different disciplines to address those questions from their knowledge base. And although there's, like in all of these websites, the internet is what it is, there's a lot of silliness, but there's a very surprising quotient of very deep thought, very good questions, very teachers of all sort. And my expertise is going to be in Buddhism, Qigong, and the fine arts. But I've been spending most of my time on the Buddhist. I have a Buddhist, I don't know if you'd call it a channel, but I have a presence on Quora as Threefold Lotus Kwun. And I've answered just loads and loads of questions, and it's been very rewarding for me in that Quora gives me statistics every week, every day, on how many views or reads my answers have had in that day. I've had thousands of reads in a day on answering very straightforward questions about Buddhism. And there's, although there are a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are many scholars from different disciplines and sects of Buddhism that will answer, I find that I'm pretty much alone in the area that I'm answering these questions in. And I take pride in answering them as accurately as possible. And I've also had just one so far, one person, an SGI Ikeda cult member, try to take me on and talk about the fact that I include Qigong practice, breathing practice for cleansing the mind and the bone marrow for better meditation. He took exception to that and said that he was Nichiren would have never blah 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 blah, and that's unfortunate because this person is not following the Buddha and Nichiren's guidance to study broadly and understand that we are human and that our health is important, and that you could say the entire, well, in good measure, the call from China for a Buddhist scholar, a very highly regarded Buddhist teacher of the Buddhist discipline in India, come to China, this was in northern China, to educate the monks about Buddhism. And the story is folklore by now. Well, it was then. Anyway, this was hundreds of years ago. And Bodhidharma, who the Chinese called Damo, saw that teaching Buddhism and Buddhist meditation was going to be of little help to these monks because they were in such poor health. So he retreated to a cave and meditated on this for a very long time and wrote two treatises. One on the sinew and tendon regeneration, and that was really more physical forms for the monks to practice, in American terms, an exercise program. But this was an exercise program that had as its intention to deepen self-awareness and included breathing exercises to cleanse and nourish the brain and the bone marrow so that stronger cells could be made into the blood from the marrow, and greater clarity and less fog in the mind for perception of what is the second teaching, which are meant to be practiced together, that of the bone marrow and brain washing or cleansing technique, which was all about breathing. There was a Taoist method and there was a Buddhist method in this Qigong. And a lot of it, the Qigong practice anyway, has its roots 4,000 years into China, but it was more focused on medical and intellectual pursuits. What Dhammo did, or Bodhidharma did, was to develop it for the sake of attaining enlightenment or awakening, Buddhist. Anyway, I'm quite certain that Nichiren would have no objection, being as he was training in Buddhism samurai. You know, and he had issues about what samurai had to do with taking the life of people, very often being their only charter. But he didn't take issue with them on keeping their good health, wishing their wives well, telling them how to be better Buddhists. And all of this falls under the guise of being healthy, clear-minded. Nichiren talked about staying away from intoxicants, anything that defiles the mind. We already have enough illusions to try to break down without acting on our minds and defiling them more with substances. So, anyway, for anyone who has issues with that, my only encouragement is study. Don't just get caught in an enclave of thinking that says, this is the book, this is the writing, this is all there is. You can't learn any more than this. Don't look there, just look at what we say. Immediately your alarms should go off, little flags, that you're now taking part of the program of an organization. And when there's an organization, the organization always puts the organization first, and the members second or third or even further, because an organization must survive, and to survive they need money, and to get money they need to have agendas and programs to motivate people to get money. And I will say this now, as controversial as it might be, but Daisaku Ikeda, for all of his merit for helping to spread the word of Buddhism, and I give him that, his organization is very, very much focused on growing itself, using the members to do so, and promoting his political agenda. And I think that clouds his judgment. I wish that he, and even the temple, Nichiren Shoshu, has been guilty over hundreds of years of magically creating documents, and there's a competitive. This is the thing in countries where, I'm going to use the word religious, even though Buddhism is not a religion, but it becomes a religion because organizations take the Buddhist teachings, and they compete for money and support from the government. You know, what are we dealing with right now in America? With the powerful elite and the corporations owning Congress and putting a president in and running the show. We think as citizens that we have this wonderful electoral system that puts people in charge that we want. But the truth is, We are manipulated through television and radio and other media to think a certain way, so that then the pump is primed, so that when the corporation puts money behind certain people, we see them as, first of all, our only options, which is baloney, and secondly, that we're getting what we want, but what we want has been tainted, and now we're trying to accuse Russia of doing it, which they very well may be. But I guarantee you, if Russia's influencing our media to make us think a certain way, don't think the United States isn't doing the same everywhere else in the world. This is just the game. This is why money defiles everything. So I'm going to get off my political pulpit. I just wanted to explain a little bit of why I haven't been producing videos, and I apologize for that. Find me on Quora. Ask me questions there. It's a great forum. You'll see interactions between me and others, and a lot of great questions that maybe you were afraid to ask. Well, they'll be on there, I'm sure. But I don't want to dissuade you from putting questions and statements here on these videos, because that helps me a great deal. All right, today's subject, and I won't keep you too long on this, but in light of everything that I've experienced on Quora and some of the reading that I've been doing lately, and I just recently reread the Vimalakirti. Wow, I have trouble with that name. Vimalakirti Sutta. It made me think, and it's a short sutra, but it's so brilliant the way that Shakyamuni taught his methods and teachings. And this is, the more I see them through different sutra from different time periods, the more I'm enamored of the Chinese scholarship of Tendai to recognize 5 distinct periods of teaching. And the more sutras you read, the more you gain this sense that in the early sermons, it was just a Buddha talking and telling his disciples, this is what you do, this is how you have to do it, this is what you have to see. And, this is where all the rules came about for being a monastery monk. There was a lot of stricture and a lot of structure, and all the more obvious that what he was trying to do is train people to get up to a certain level of capacity where they could understand what he really wanted to teach. But, he was so far ahead of the understanding of his day. You have to remember, we're talking almost 3,000 years ago. There weren't iPods. There weren't fax machines. Heck, there weren't telephones. There wasn't electricity. I mean, you have to think of a very agrarian agricultural society with pervasive poverty, very, very much, and only certain centers of wealth. These were very different times, and people's minds simply were not as developed. They didn't have so many things to think about. If you were born to a man who for his whole life grew rice to make a living for his family, you were a rice farmer, period. Even more so because India is a very caste society, not class, caste. It means if you're born to a wood cobbler, then a wood cobbler you will be, period. So, that may seem very strict to you, but you would be thankful to have a ready-made occupation to be in, okay? Number one, you weren't of the discarded, untouchable caste. And number two, it made for a very simple life. You didn't have a million things to worry about or think about. All you had to do was be a cobbler, be a damn good one, and you'd survive. Okay? So what Buddha was trying to explain to them required deep introspection and deep understanding of how things work in the world around them. Well, wow, that's like huge concept. So what he did for the first 20 some years of his teaching was nothing but hammer at them on these behaviors that he wanted them to adopt, so that they would come to their own realizations of the limitations of their body and how that worked in their mind. Observe the mind, the mind, the mind. Always, anything he asked them to do, whether it was to be in isolation in a monastery, which was a big step to remove them from the only real diversion they had other than their caste life, was sex and alcohol and entertainment in those two realms. So if you put them in a monastery, suddenly their life goes from being simple to being strictly very focused, right? Well, so you read the early teachings, other than the Avatamsaka, the flower garland, because that he only taught that for 21, 22 days, because he was so excited after attaining enlightenment that all he could do was describe what enlightenment was like. And I imagine his audience of disciples who really wanted to hear his wisdom were kind of like Cocker Spaniels, going, "What?" Wow, that must be really cool. I hear my mom calling, So he stopped doing that because he saw, and that's what taught him that the people of his day simply didn't have the capacity to understand what he was talking about. But anyway, back to the Vimalakirti Sutra, which is a Mahayana sutra. The Buddha speaks through a layman, but he speaks through other of his disciples as well. It's structured in such a wonderful little... Again, you're going to hear a lot of unfathomable stuff, like we're in Vimalakirti's living room, and we're joined by 80,000 bodhisattvas, and 100,000 from here, and 100,000 from there, and they all sat down, and none of them felt crowded, and in a living room, okay? So you have to suspend a little bit of disbelief, but this is the one message that I want to send to you with this video today. And I think this is the key. Should be careful about doing that, because I may in 6 months come up with another video and go, oh, this is the key. But I think, let's just say it's one of, if not the most important key in reading the sutra, the many sutras, and the commentaries on the sutra, and understanding their meaning. Because Buddha, if anything, if nothing else, admonished, as I said in a previous video, I believe I did, I know I said it on Quora, but I'll repeat it here. If you read the Lankavatara Sutra, for instance, that's a conversation between Buddha and a very advanced bodhisattva who's looking to go to the final stage of bodhisattva. And it's famous for having 108 questions, which is, 108 beads, and 108 happens a lot in many cultures, in a spiritual sense. But this bodhisattva is a little bit stubborn. He's stuck on the words at one point. He's going, but when you say this, do you mean this? Or do you mean this? Or do you mean this? And even I found myself getting a little frustrated, and I may have pushed that onto my impression of Shakyamuni at the time, but I think by 2/3 of the way through the book, Shakyamuni gets a little tired. And he finally says to this guy, he says, look, you're enamored of the words. You're thinking that you're going to get this epiphany and this aha and finally understand the Dharma if you could just get the words right. But that's ridiculous. There's no way. I've already said time and time again that you cannot experience the Dharma through words. Words are completely inadequate to describe the awakening to the true nature of everything. Words are duality. Words are made up temporary things. They change over time. They're useless except in a way to help point, to guide, to illustrate. What's important is the meaning. Grasp the meaning and let go the words. And that message is very strongly put in the Lankavatara Sutra. So here we are, once again, reading a sutra with all these impossible things happening and these personages and so on and so forth. But the vimalakirti, because of its focus on how to perceive the teachings of Buddha, of enlightenment, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of illustrations of these different actual or mythological persons who go through their own anuttara samyak sambodhai, their own awakening. And for each individual example that's given in the sutra, their path and their awakening are very specific to them. And so after reading that, I thought, I don't think anyone really talks about this. If they do, I'd like to know who they are, so maybe I could learn something from them. But the illustrations in the Vimalakirti Sutra are a huge clue to how all of the sutras should be read, beginning to end, early to late, Hinayana to Mahayana, that all of these dialogues, these words, are meant to illustrate different avenues of experience of the same thing. Let me say that again. All of Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings are about one singular thing. That one singular thing is how, not why, how do I awaken from my human conditioned consciousness to my root fundamental Buddha consciousness, my Buddha energy, my Buddha clarity, my unrestrained, undifferentiated, all-knowing, quiescent Buddhahood. And that is wisdom. To have that consciousness is to know. To know is to be wise. To be in it means that you're no longer here. So to experience it as a human, in the human condition, is truly life-altering. So if you awaken to your Buddha nature in this form, that makes you a bodhisattva. Or you leave this form and migrate into the quiescent energy, the Buddha. The Buddha being a state of energy. We are all energy. Everything is energy. Right? You know that by now. Matter comes from energy. Right? E equals mc squared. So, all of these stories about giving arms and flesh and and offerings of all manner and behaviors of all manner. Every sutra has some kind of a focus on behavior, relationships, filial relationships, how to discard the words and learn the meaning, the discourse. Every sutra has in it some core aspect of the way human beings behave and how they learn and how they teach themselves and how they struggle to make realizations and integrate their wisdom. All of them are unabashedly stories. No, the Buddha never says this is real. He says, take a look at this. Now, do you understand that the awakening you will experience isn't like mine? It's not like your neighbors. It's not like Ananda. It's not like Shariputra. It's not like but I'm going to show you theirs, because what you need to understand is not only the struggle of their journey to attain Anuta Samyak Sambodhai, their own awakening. But what you need to notice is that they're all different. To get to the same place, to get to their Buddha nature and their Buddha wisdom, everybody's path is different. So you shouldn't be predisposed that, oh no, one of these days I'm going to have to cut off my arm to do this. You know what I'm saying? All of these stories, all of these teachings are not about what they're talking about. They're about helping you to understand that there's a path. That the path you go through is uniquely yours. And this is why, and I'm going to come back to this, and I'm telling you on Quora, I must have said it 1,000,000 times. Well, maybe 1,000. I can't type that fast. This is why the Buddha constantly admonishes us to study. Without study, there can be no Buddhism. Why? Because everyone's experience is a little different, or very different, than what they think or see in their surroundings, or read. But if you read enough, if you study enough, at some point you're going to go, oh, I get it. And believe me, you'll have many of those, so there won't just be one. Study, 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 study. Study helps you understand. And then when you get those I get it moments and you understand, changes your whole practice. You may do the same thing you do every day, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, and get yourself a Gohanzen and just focus on that. You may do breathing exercises to help you clear your mind and nourish your bone marrow, and chant as well. You may do many things. What's important is the goal. Where are you headed? That's the meaning. And if your goal is clear, and you practice it assiduously, consistently, then what are you developing? A very strong mind. And what do we know about the concept of a strong mind in Asian thinking? It's mind and heart together, isn't it? Shen is mind, heart, and spirit. Spirit, mind, heart. All things that, and I don't mean heart the organ, I mean heart the sensation. Right? When I say mind, I don't mean brain, right? This is what most English translators miscommunicate in all of the translations you're going to read. They're going to use the word faith. That's a convenient Western word, and I really, 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 really don't like it because it's super misleading. Faith is so tied in the West to belief in something without proof. And if there's anything antithetical to the way Buddhists think, it's that. We don't just throw ourselves at something because somebody tells us to, without any kind of proof or logic or nothing. No. And for me, the word faith is clearly that. So I erase it and change it in every dialogue that I can find. It's a strong mind. It's not faith. A strong mind. What's a strong mind? It's a mind that operates with greater and greater conviction, with greater and greater determination. And where does that conviction and determination come from? Not somebody telling me. It comes from my own understanding, from my own aha. Where does that understanding come from? How do I just sit around and have a great bowel movement and suddenly I understand? Comes from study. Devour as much information as Shakyamuni was able to put out there, and the commentaries by Nagarjuna, brilliant, brilliant commentaries, Vasubandhu, Tendai, Saicho, Miaolo, and Nichiren. When you read Nichiren's letters to his followers, you can feel Nichiren's zeal, his strong mind. Yeah, he had a very strong mind. Ugh. So convinced, so excited, so determined. So this is my message to you today, and I hope you carry it with you and dilute it into some sentence form if you have to, but it won't be the words, will it? It'll be the meaning of the words, and that meaning will be yours uniquely. Study, 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 study. Develop understanding, and from that, a strong mind, and seek your enlightenment, your awakening. It won't be anyone else's. It'll be just yours. And you'll be able to tell a story in a sutra about your experience and your enlightenment. It'll be your dialogue with Buddha. Your Buddha. The Buddha. Right? Make sense? Well, that's over half an hour, so I'm going to bid you good day. Have a tremendous day. I'm going to close by simply chanting Sancho. I'm going to do it slowly for those of you who are still learning how to chant. And upcoming soon, I'm going to do a very slow gongyo on tape. I've never heard anyone else do it, but for you to learn the pronunciation of the gongyo, it's imperative that you do slow gongyo, and if you don't have somebody to do it with and help you out with pronunciation and so forth, it can be very hard to do. So I'm going to do it for you, all right? Because I'm much happier for you to be studying on your own and learning on your own and deepening your understanding and your strong mind on your own than I am to try to push you into any type of organization. Because I've been there. I've been a member of NSA. I've been a member of SGI. I've been a member of Nichiren Shoshu Temple. All tremendous disappointments because all they care about is their entity. And Buddhism is not that. Okay? Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Have a great day. Love you guys. looking for the stop button, sorry.